Does your model allow you to reach the goals that you've set? And for a lot of people, often it doesn't.
Welcome to the Fitness Marketing Agency podcast, part 2 of the episode where we're joined by the Fitness Business Development Academy with Nikki Segal and James Bramwell.
If you truly believe in the business that you're delivering, the profits will come.
You've got to stay in your lane.
Yeah.
You've got to stay in your lane, right? There is so much business that is done on comparison. We try to encourage people to prioritize profit at every stage.
Emotions are stronger than data.
The journey of entrepreneurship is the best journey of self-development you'll ever go on. It's my personal belief that when done properly, the most profitable model in our industry is...
This episode is brought to you by Stride DNA, the DNA testing service that helps coaches, PTs, and gym owners take their client programming to the next level. Ever wondered why some clients thrive on certain workouts while others burn out? It all comes down to genetics. Stride DNA gives you science-backed insights into how your clients respond to training, recover, and process nutrients, so you can tailor workouts, refine diets, and optimize recovery for faster results. It's not just game-changing for clients, it's an easy additional revenue stream for your business. Offer DNA-driven coaching as part of a premium package or earn commission on test kits. It's quick, simple, and Stride gives you all the tools and education you need. The best part, it's quick and easy. Your clients take a swab, send it off, and in days, you'll be able to implement the change they need to thrive in their fitness journey. So if you want to future-proof your coaching, get real results, and boost your revenue, visit getstride.com today.
So Maxine just left, but we're going to roll straight into what we were just talking about. So Nikki, you wanted to add something onto that last piece.
Yeah, I got a few points on the back of what Maxine was saying and how you started this interview is like you asked like what makes a hyper successful person, and look, business is a team sport. You cannot win this game on your own, and that's something that you have to understand, right? So as Maxine was saying about her own team, like you need to understand like what motivates them, what drives them at different stages of their own life, whether it's money, time, or purpose. It's the exact same thing that I was talking about the business owner, right? Because ultimately, again, as I started the podcast with, was like we're dealing with humans. The staff are still humans, right? Do you know what I mean? They still have needs and wants and desires, and they want to develop just like business owners do, right? Yes, their goals are going to be different. There's no doubt in my mind. And when I was asking my own trainers what they want, it was nothing compared to what I wanted, right? Our goals were a little bit different, right? And on the start of that journey is like you were saying, as a business owner, do you need to know or have all the skills at the start of the journey? And the answer is no. It's like when you're first getting going, you are going to make mistakes. You are going to learn a lot of lessons. It is your business. It is your baby. It's only when it starts to evolve, and when you start to evolve as a business owner, you start to let the baby go, and that's when the business starts to grow. But you can't force that at the start, right? If you're new into business, you're going to have that. It's your baby. It's going to be everything. Fine. Just like that's a stage that everyone has to go through. But eventually, that baby starts to become a teenager and adult, and that's when the business has to support its people, right? It becomes a different entity. And going back to what Maxine was saying, I think this is really important, right? The business owner has to put their own oxygen mask on first, right? And that's the key thing, and that's something that we teach our clients is like, right, first thing we're trying to do is get you paid. Right, is get you, and people have panic attacks like, oh my God, how am I going to do that when I can't afford bills? I'm like, look, don't worry. We are going to escalate like your own pay, not to live like a pimp, as I always say, but just to live better than the norm, right? And then we play that game for like up to a year, maybe right? But then once they're taken care of, now we put everything back into the business in terms of profit, and now we can start to feed the people of the business, and that order works really well, and it goes against every business book I've read. It is totally opposite, right? But it works, right? Because people are emotional, and we have to satisfy emotional needs, especially with the business owner first.
So I want to dive into this even more, but first I just want to kind of tie up where we've gone, because I segued onto teams. So I wanted to ask Maxine about that specifically, but we started off with finding out what it is you actually want. And then we established that to actually kind of change your belief systems, and that's really the first element, right? It's establishing what you want and changing your belief systems is kind of the phase one of you evolving and becoming a high performing gym owner and becoming hyper successful. Then stage two, you mentioned earlier, James, the data, knowing your numbers, and then you mentioned paying yourself first. So is that kind of stage 2 of becoming a hyper successful, in terms of like, you've got your belief systems, you now know what you want, you know how much you want it, you know what the business will serve you, but now we need to actually get under the bonnet and figure out what the numbers are looking like here.
100%.
So that's step 2 essentially in this process.
Yeah, so I'll let James talk about this. We have a sheet called financial modeling, and that's kind of the architectural drawings of the business. I'll let James talk about that.
Yeah, but you're spot on, right? So the numbers, when it comes down to it and you take everything away, you get into the nitty gritty, that is the skeleton of the business. Because ultimately, that's what empowers you to do all the other stuff, such as paying your staff, providing a service, and so on, and so on, and so on. And as Nicky mentioned, so we have our financial modelling tab on our financial optics, right? And in the financial modelling, what you do is you would put all the numbers of where the business, where you want it to be in the future.
So you start off in terms of your, because when it comes to finances, most people will go, right, I need to track what I spent and what I made, and I put them against, and that's my finances. But what you guys start with right, how much do I want? How much do I want in my pocket every month, every year? That's the first number you put in there. Yeah. Okay.
And then here's the thing. So even going back, when we do that in the lifestyle cost analyzer that Maxime referenced, that will actually tell you roughly how big your business needs to be, how many clients you need to have based on how much it's going to take to pay the business owner at level 1. Right? And then from there, we'll transfer those numbers into our financial modeling, and we'll go into greater detail. And here's where we're going to get all of your expenses that you're going to have and what you have now. We're going to put all of your revenue streams and how much you're making, and see, based on the outgoings of the business and based on paying yourself a certain amount, where does the business need to be?
And that is where, correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of your methodology, and that is where the actual model is then created, or the options for model is created, because you now know how much you want to make, how much the kind of fixed costs of the business in terms of your rent and staff and all that. Then you decide, right, well, now what do I need to do to be able to make those numbers match?
Yeah, 100%. And listen, most people build a business without any architectural plans.
Yeah, they'll go, I'm going to charge
That's the problem.
179 because the competitor charge is 189.
There's no plan. If you build in a building, you get the architectural drawings first and you have it finished on paper. That's what financial modeling does, right? It's just like, let's look at the next chapter. What does it look like? And then we can say, does your model actually allow you to reach your goals? I was at a sales call yesterday. I was talking to someone, and it was clearly obvious, like, dude, like, you cannot get what you want with the model that you are running. So you have to change your model, right?
And you might have a business owner that maybe they come to you and they're like, I'm making 50k a month, but you actually look behind the scenes, they're not actually making the money that they want. No. And what's happened is that they've built this model and they haven't, put that plan together, and they've got really high expenses, really low profit margins, but they're exhausted because they're running
happens all the time. We see it all the time.
They're maintaining a big machine that isn't producing, and they're exhausted.
And that's the thing. So a couple of things in there that you've identified really well, Charlie. So as you mentioned about the model, and as Nicky said right there, once we understand what you need to make from the business, we are now assessing the viability of your model. And we got to understand, does your model allow you to reach the goals that you've set? And for a lot of people, often it doesn't. And that's where we've got to tweak the model, right? And we will look at the model and look at the capacity, look at how many sessions you can put on, look at how many people you serve. And we've got to work out, is that going to allow you to hit the goals that you've got for now and for the future? And is there enough rope? And that's where we might have to tweak the model. And sometimes that might mean changing the model completely, or it might just be making small tweaks and small variables. And ultimately, we still say to them, look, ensure that the model fits your understanding and your philosophies and beliefs about how you want to train people.
Yeah.
So it's still got to fit you in terms of what type of model do you want to deliver to your members and to your clients. Yeah. It has to, because you can't, if you go against what you want to do,
it goes against step one.
Yeah, you got to believe in your product, right?
Yeah.
You'll have no belief in your product. So it's like,
the product, you can't sell it.
Yeah, because
you believe in it.
Because you say, look, you need to do this model here. It's going to be the most profitable. But then it fundamentally, it doesn't sit right with that person.
No, then it's not going to work. Then it's broken.
Then it goes against step one, which is like, what do you want, right?
This is where blueprints don't work, right?
So you've got to find the fusion between what is, but at the same time of saying that, making money and making the money you want is also a priority, and probably just as important as that model factor.
100%.
So yeah, because if you're going to make a model that doesn't serve you, you're just going to be miserable.
That's it.
But then if you make loads of money with a model that doesn't serve you,
I think you asking, I don't know whether you asked it before off air or not, but you were asking what metrics matter, right? And owner comp, definitely. Do you know what I mean? But then also we have like happiness score, both like life happiness score, business happy score, and then how well does your life and business align? And it's just simple, 1, 2, 3, like score it every month. And so we can actually make sure that, okay, you are still going in the same path, making money, but being happy along the way. Otherwise we can tweak it. We catch it and we tweak it, because people, that's just the nature of business. You do build it and like, not really feeling it. So let me go backwards and then, and build it to where I actually want to get to, right? So
and so owner compensation is the money that you take, but there's more to it underneath that name, isn't there? Because it's not just like the salary you make, right? So what are the things that contribute towards owner compensation? Because some people don't look at paying themselves within the same mindset of owner compensation, but I know you're referring to.
So we track it like this, right? Owner compensation stroke net profit, or OC NP is what we call it, right? Because some people will take less out, some people take more out. So really, when we were looking at it, is like, we got to combine the whole thing, because actually that's the number that the business owner potentially has to either grow the business, take off the table, whatever, right? Or any executive benefits like running cars through the business or whatever. We would count that as a personal expense for our tracking purposes, right? And we always look at like 33% is the gold number. If you can get a business 30% OCMP, so a third's coming to the owner or the business, third's going out to staffing, a third's going out to operating costs and taxes and stuff. You got a solid business there, man. That's a good business.
And so is owner compensation included within total profit, or is that?
Okay, so OCMP is the combined.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
And then we also split it between OC and MP, but we can't put a percentage on like either one, because people are different. They sometimes take more out, some people take less out. So we've just like, from a metric point of view, combine the two, and that's just gold standard.
So basically, it's like that's the money that is available to you.
Yes, it's available. Yeah,
but it doesn't necessarily mean it's in your pocket.
No.
So in terms of owner compensation, it's this, but it's either sitting here or it's sitting there in terms of which account it's in.
And it's up to the business owner how they take it out.
Yeah.
But the aim is that ultimately that this OCMP. Is that OCNP allowing you, enabling you to reach the goals that we'd set from the start? If yes, then we're all good.
Nice.
If not, then we need to make adjustments.
And the question that popped in my mind, but I'm going to save it for later, but I'm going to reference it, is in terms of the best way to pay yourself and what to do with your money when you get to a point. But that's kind of at the end of this. I want to tie it all together and put pieces in nicely. So we spoke about the belief system, the environment, the data. So we said tracking the amount you want. From there, you building the model. And then it's about figuring out what that model is going to be best for that person. Correct?
Yes.
Perfect.
For sure. Now, and here's the thing, right? So as an example, it's my personal belief that when done properly, the most profitable model in our industry is large group. Large group, 15, 20 people, you're doing 30 plus sessions a week and you charge it appropriately. It's the model which will make the most money bar none.
That's fair. So if I was to, let's say just like play devil's advocate in a very friendly way, some people might be like, oh no, it's small group, like 1 to 3, 1 to 4, what 1 to 6, whatever. Yeah. Is that coming from a data-driven place in terms of like
straight data?
Yeah,
straight data, right? And the reason why I make that point is because personally, it's not the model that I prefer.
Yeah.
Although I know when putting the numbers...
you do small group training and you're saying large group is the most profitable model.
There you go. Yeah. And this is the point I'm making, right? Ultimately, you have to choose the model which aligns with you. Because ultimately, large group, when done properly, 15 to 20 people plus, even you get to the big numbers, 30, big facility, 20 sessions per week, when done well, you can't beat that model from a money perspective. It's unbeaten. If I'm honest with you. However, it might not suit what you're looking for in terms of your own personal philosophy when it comes to the technical aspects of how you like to train people.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why you've got to find that middle ground of make sure the model fits you, so you believe in that product, but at the same time, ensure the model has enough room, enough space, enough margin, right? Enough margin in there so that you can pay everybody and also hit the goals you've set out. So from my perspective, the model that I like and I've loved is small group personal training, 1 to 6.
So you could have a more profitable business than the person that's got the higher average yield.
You're seeing more people.
Because you've just got more people that you can service in an hour.
Volume. It's pure volume. So when you're serving those 20 odd people and you've got 400 odd clients, you can't touch that. There's no touching it, right? However, you've got to decide, is that the type of business that you want for you? Want to have. Does that fit your philosophy?
This goes right to at the start. What we're saying is like, so I'm not a massive believer in blueprints. It's like you have to be able to create your own journey. And if you look at business coaching, right, FBA could definitely make more money if we went to groups. But we've chosen not to because our preferred style is one-to-one coaching, and we find that's where we get our most value from, and that's our model, right? But if it was pure money, then it would be just one large group on a Zoom, right? And then just follow what we say, right? So.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you just said, because I think a lot of people will think that the small group PT is more profitable, but it makes sense, right? Because like, let's say you do 1 to 4 and you charge, I don't know, £200-300 a month. You could fill up a class environment where with 15 to 20 people and charge half the amount, but you've got more people in at the same time, so you're actually making more technically per session. But then someone might say, yeah, but it's easier to get less people and charge more versus more than charge less.
100%. So now we're getting into what are your beliefs, what are your philosophies, what type of service do you want to deliver.
Yeah.
So your point there is exactly the reason why personally I prefer the small group approach.
Because it's less people to manage.
It's less people, so you can focus on quality rather than quantity.
I could also counter my own point that I just made by saying, but actually, because the service is less of a price, you're actually going to get more people that will take you up on the offer versus
so
other
it makes
people.
It sales easier. It's pros and cons.
I'm just bouncing around here.
And that's why you've got to find what works for you, because in every single option you take, there'll be a pro and there'll be a con.
And this really goes back to what you said earlier about like finding the model that works for you, because you said that large group would be more profitable, but you do small group. And is that because you just like small group more?
100%. Because ultimately, the small group model for me, in terms of the way that we like to train people and the way that we've got the best results and the service that we pride ourselves upon, it is done well when we have less people.
Yeah.
And we charge them a little bit more, so 1 to 6. So in our model now, we find that middle ground where we can seat up to 14 people at one time.
Yeah.
But if the 14 people, we'll have 3 coaches. So that still keeps our ratio. So it means we've got more coaches, we spend more money out on our coaches, but then we charge our members a better price compared to the large group. And in that way, we hit the best of both worlds. And just one thing to add in that we didn't speak about when we're talking about staff, and this permeates all different sections of your business. When you are building your business models and when you are building your staff life cycle, you're aiming for a triple win scenario. And that's the thing that we can't forget. And we speak about it all the time. When you're building your business, you're trying to build it in the idea that every single party wins. So you want to make sure that the business, i.e. the business owner, wins, right? And too many people set a business up where the business owner is not winning. But also, not only can the business owner win, we need to make sure that your staff are winning. As we touched on with Maxine, the staff need to make sure within that framework, within that model, that they're winning from a money, time and purpose perspective. But then also, which you can't forget, the members need to win. They need to ensure that they're getting the service which gets them results, which keeps them coming where they like it, and it's producing the outcome that they're looking for. And when you have that triple win scenario, that again is a massive part of a successful fitness business.
Well, because that creates sustainability, right? Because you could go, right, I'm going to rip out an element. So like, and also what I want to say is that you're literally practicing what you preach, in terms of that you have in theory, you have 14 people and 3 coaches. In theory, you could be more profitable if you just had 14 to 1 and 2 less coaches. But you like the model. It helps the clients win because they get more of a touch point. Yeah. But if you were to go, right, I'm just going to do 14 to 1, the clients may not feel like they're winning. Maybe some more people. But yeah, again, there's lots of variables. But you are literally practicing what you preach, in terms of like there's technically a model that's more profitable. You're choosing not to utilize that model because then you'll get the best of both worlds. You're still got a profitable business, plus you're delivering a personalized quality service. Exactly. And so everyone wins.
I think it almost works the other way. Like if you truly believe in the business that you're delivering, the profits will come. Do you know what I mean? Because like you're all invested into it, right? I don't think you could just say, here's the most profitable model, let me go and follow that. I think you should do it from the other way around. Is like, go with what you believe first, your training methodology, the way you prefer to train, like even if it was 1-to-1, let's say, you know, which is probably the least profitable model of all, right? But if that's your belief, then go and build it. Find a way how to make it work for you, basically, right? Yeah.
And the whole theme of this is making it work for you, right? And you know, we interview people on this podcast, and it's like, you know, their gym's doing 50k a month and 70k a month, and that's what some people want and achieve, right? But like, I think it's also relevant to say that it's totally cool if you've got like a nice setup that's making 15k a month and you're making a nice profit and you're fulfilling your life.
Totally, mate. I go back to James though. When I remember he came to me and he was he first said about the church, and I looked at it and I said, look, let me look at the numbers. I go, James, here are the options, right? Do you want to look good on Instagram and be broke? or do you want to swallow your ego and make loads of money? And he goes, let me think about it. And he come back next day, I want to make money. I go, forget the studio right now. Go and like get the church in it, which, as you know, like was the most unsexiest place ever. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, but if you looked at his profit and loss sheet, it was the most sexiest thing you'll ever see, right? Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is, but what people don't see, though, right? People don't see the profit and loss sheet, and another place of success is like, I think you have to play the game of business from a spreadsheet, as boring as it sounds, right? Do you know what I mean? If you play it from the numbers and then emanate and build out, you're gonna have much more chance of success than having the latest gear and making it look good on Instagram, but you are massively cash flowing negativity and in debt, and you don't see that on Instagram, right? So it's like so yeah, I think that's really really important to do.
And there's a phrase you have. I don't know if it's relevant actually, but in terms of like, you have those people that go all in and maybe they're not as profitable. You've got people that go more reserved, but then they're more profitable. But there's multiple ways to do something. You know, there's a phrase you have like, everything works, but nothing works.
Yeah,
I think one of the things that we try and do, we try to encourage people to prioritize profit at every stage.
Yeah,
that's what we try to prioritize. So we say, especially if you don't have an investor, if you don't have X amount of money that can just fund the business, we say from the get-go, can you make profit? Because if you can make profit from the start, then that's going to allow you to show up and be a better business owner, right? And the majority of us that get into this business and into this industry, as Maxine said, we're not thinking about money first. We're thinking about, we just want to help people. Even for myself, I was like, I just want to help people. Yeah. That's it, right? So from the get-go, from when Nikki and I are working, we're always like, at every stage, can we ensure that you're getting paid?
Yeah.
And if you do that, then actually you're going to be happier. You're going to be happier and you're going to be a better business owner. However, going back to what you said, everything works and nothing works. Sometimes someone might be in a position where they have got lots of investment, they've worked a previous job, gone through a career change, and they can fund it and they can go all in, all out from the get-go.
This is where it can be a little bit deceptive as well for a lot of people, because they...
I know what you're going to say, but I'll let you say it.
Yeah, so because people just see like, wow, this looks amazing, this gym looks amazing, but like, it's not real, right? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's built on debt or investment or some type of advantage that they have, which is fine, but like you can't model that. You can't model that,
and that can be frustrating. To see when you don't have investment and you're looking at someone that has investment, you're like, how have they done that in such a short space of time? And it's like, because like money is like rocket fuel in terms of it will speed things up. Yeah. So if you see someone that from day zero to year one, that they've got the biggest, the shiniest space, it's not that they had no capital and now all of a sudden they've got the best gym in the world. They just went in with investment, and in a way that's technically a shortcut, but there's a higher level of risk. Whereas you can take the scenic route and you can be profitable every single step of the way, and you can get to that point. So there's not necessarily a wrong or right way, but I think it's important to understand that you should, like, people that have investment, you can do that because you've got the capital.
Yeah, 100%. And a business is not fair. It's like life. It's not fair, right? Do you know what I mean? It's like some people got head starts and some haven't. That's fine. Like, I would say that play the game that you've been dealt with. That's it. Do you know what I mean? It's just, but you have to play your own game. Go back to what we're saying there. So like, I'd take, if you haven't got nothing, just have a kettlebell, go to a field and start a boot camp and make profit. Do you know what I mean? Literally, like that is the best thing to do, right? Don't try to get like a 5,000 square foot studio or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But if you have the means or someone will invest, then do it, right? Do you know what I mean? Then do it. It's fine. But don't hate people or don't like detest people that have got it. It's just that's how the game is played, right? You got to play the game where whatever card you've been dealt with.
I think the point I was making is like, you should like to understand why their business is where, but it's because they have investment. But you might be sitting in your position and going, how have they done that? Maybe I'm shit. But actually it's not because of that. It's just because they've got investment and you haven't. So you're playing a different game.
Definitely not. If you're profitable, then you're doing all right. That's all I'm going to say. You'd be surprised how many people are not actually profitable, right? So it's like, so there's no point saying you're shit. Just what James said and what we've all said, just make sure your business.
And this is the thing, right? If I was to make this a kind of a point on what you're writing down, I'd say that you got to stay in your lane.
Yeah.
You got to stay in your lane, right? There is so much business that is done on comparison. As you said, where you're looking at this person, looking at that person, thinking, oh, what they've got is great. Oh, I want a bit of that. I want a bit of this. But you've got to stay in your lane. And you've got to make sure that you're making it work for you. Because ultimately, you can make your stuff look amazing for Instagram, but then if you can't pay your bills, then what's the point? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense, right? So you have to really run your own race. You got to run your own race, and that sometimes might be doing the unsexy stuff or just focusing on what's going on for you. But as long as you do that, then you're all good, right? Like for myself, I remember during COVID, I had to take a bit of time off Instagram, right? Because during COVID, during lockdown, The business, thankfully, our members stayed and it was still doing well, still making profit. But every time that I went onto Instagram, I started getting into comparison, thinking that my business is rubbish, it's awful, nothing's working, I've got to change this and change that. But then when I checked the spreadsheet, everything was fine.
Yeah.
So I was like, do I trust the spreadsheet, which tells me everything is fine? Or do I trust my feelings of, I'm on Instagram, everything looks so much better than my stuff. What are we doing? Rip it all apart and change it.
This is that data over emotion.
Exactly.
Right?
So I'd say, you know what? And at this point, I was still business coaching, but I was just like everybody else, running a business, trying to balance the two. Right? So I was like, you know what? Let me actually take Instagram off the phone, just leave it to one side, and just focus on serving our members, serving our staff, and keep building the business and stay in my lane.
Well, it's good to hear you say that even you're kind of receptive to feelings. Because the emotions are stronger than data, I would actually say, which doesn't make any sense logically. Yeah. But when you're emotional, like that's it. You're emotional, right? Yeah. And I'm sure you deal with gym owners all the time, where on paper they're doing very well, but then they go, I just feel like, yeah.
It's kind of go back to right at the start. We're dealing with humans, man. That's how we work. We work on emotions, not intelligence, right? Do you know what I mean? It's like, and this leads me to the next thing about hyper successful people. Their emotional intelligence is way higher. Do you know what I mean? Because ultimately they're dealing with people. Do you know what I mean? And we have on our leadership framework, at the bottom of it, it's just like, look, manage yourself before you manage your business, the number one. Then it's the next stage up is like lead people. One of the things we have is like lead people, manage tasks, don't manage people, right? Do you know what I mean? It's like, but if you're a good leader and you can like understand their goals, as Maxine was saying, and you're able to kind of build your business to support them, you can pretty much have a very poor systematic business and it can still work because we're in the relationship business, right? The next stage of that leadership framework is then like lead performance, which is the more systematic part of the business. But as you're starting to climb up this leadership framework, it goes more from being intellectually clever to more emotionally clever because we're dealing with people, right? And then there's two more stages on that. The next one is leading change. Because in a small business, change is necessary and nobody likes change, right? So that is a hard skill to manage people's expectations when you have to change it, but you do. And then finally is developing leaders. Do you know what I mean? For those business owners that are fortunate to get to like 25, 30K plus, you can't be the single brain behind the next level of growth. Do you know what I mean? You need other critical thinkers in your business, and they need to be developed. They need to be developed, and that's kind of our leadership framework. And that's another part of what we see is like to people who are ultimately really successful. They've managed to go from like being intellectually intelligent to more emotionally intelligent, and bringing their people with them, or like their people are literally growing their business for them, but they've managed to set up that environment to do so.
It kind of goes back to when you're talking about team, and you mentioned that like you've got to have your own emotional intelligence, and then you've got to build yourself up, and then pass that on to other key members. But you've got to sort yourself out first before.
That's the base, yeah.
So if you're there like, oh, all my staff are churning, is it actually a problem within potentially that you haven't sorted your own, kind of EQ out before you pass it on to someone else?
Most likely, yes.
Yeah. Is this something? And you mentioned this before we were recording, like when I was talking about like what is a hyper successful person? It's like, well, it's not a case of you have it or you don't. It's not like some people come in and are great and some people come in and they're not. You develop these skills.
You develop it, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that's reassuring for everyone to hear.
Yeah,
because,
it's a skill, right? It's a skill. Like you can learn this. Like we're just examples of that. We just know like not anyone else, right?
And this is the thing, right? So one of the guys that I follow, he says that the journey of entrepreneurship is the best journey of self-development you'll ever go on. And it is, because ultimately at every single step of the journey, you're learning and you're developing and you're changing. And you have to change as your business grows, because what serves you at point X will not serve you at point Y. And ultimately, you have to make sure that you are consistently evolving. And even one of the things that we speak about is that the most important muscle when it comes to entrepreneurship is your brain. And we keep speaking about it, right? The brain, right? Yeah. So, and all of us, when we get in there, we're good at training, buys, tries, back, whatever, chest day, every day's chest day. Right? But the actual muscle that we need to exercise the most in the art of entrepreneurship is the brain. And we need to keep on developing the brain. year in, year out, day in, day out, week in, week out. And again, that's how your business is going to grow and it's going to develop, right?
Because the answers in terms of like how to do something, it's all out there, right? Whether that's exercise or business, there's information everywhere on the internet, but it's actually how you utilize the information and show up and be consistent. And obviously you guys will tie everything together in a streamlined approach so you don't feel lost, because there's so much information out there, right? But it just goes to show that like a bit like training, right? Like you can find out any workout plan on the internet, you can find out any resources for training for free, but it's the mindset of how you actually show up every day as a business owner is going to be the most important element.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's again, I go back to it's exactly when I was personal training, people would pay me and they wouldn't do what I would tell them to do. And this was early in my career. So I'm like, how is this possible? You're paying me this money and you're not listening to me. What is going wrong? They don't teach you that at sports science, right? You have to then go and learn like from other professionals who've done it or books. And it took me down behavioral coaching, and I started to read a lot about behavioral coaching, and then I started to get it. Do you know? I started to get it, and the reason I say that it's no different when you're going on this business journey, and like a lot of it is behavioral change and behavioral coaching. The how-to is all that. Like with that, everyone, if you ask anyone, like, how do you get healthy? They'll tell you. They'll know, right? They'll know, right? Eat this, But then why don't you do it? That's where the problems come, right?
It all comes up to emotion, right?
It all comes to emotion, and behavior, right? So it's like what you're trying to do, whether it's fitness, whether it's business, whether it's any other, you're trying to change behavior, right? And that's hard. And that's very hard to do on your own, if not impossible, right? Because you're living with yourself, right? So this is where having someone outside is important to help you on that journey, right?
And I think there's a lot of people out there that are quite resistant to self-development. Like they're like, oh, I don't want to invest in any of this woo-woo stuff. Like I know what to do. But actually, it's through that self-development and through developing yourself that you're going to get the ability to implement these skills.
100%.
You as a business owner, is what James said then, like it is a game of self-development. Do you know what I mean? I feel absolutely blessed and fortunate that I've been in the personal training industry and business because of the amount I've developed over the 23, 24 years, more than that, 25 years now. And it's still to this day, like I'm probably trying to work on myself more now than ever before. Do you know what I mean? It's like this game is all about self-development. Like you cannot, there's no chance of winning without it.
And the beauty of it is that the game never ends. Yeah, the game never ends. That's the beauty, right? So every time you think you've come to the end, then you find a new goal. And you find something else that you want to achieve. And that's what makes it so exciting. And that's what keeps you going.
And I'm looking forward to talking about that kind of, not end point, but because you get to a level in the gym where maybe you can't take on that many more new clients, but and you've had the burst of growth, right? And I want to talk about life after that in terms of to be able to improve that, but also beyond there and what you can do with the money that you make. I'm excited for that because not many people talk about that, and we've got two people that have done that very, very successfully. But before we do there, so have we wrapped up on the finances and KPIs in terms of how much you want to make, expenses? What are the main KPIs that people should be looking at religiously? And also how often as a business owner should I be looking at these sheets? Because like Maxine said, never wanted to look at my numbers, never wanted to do anything. We've got the numbers down. How often should I be looking at this data?
There's a ton of metrics, right? We've tried to simplify it. Over the years I've been doing this, I've tried to make it simpler and simpler and simpler just to get adherence, right? More than anything else. So there's a lot of numbers at the start which we thought were cool, but no one really tracked, right? So that it kind of destroys that part. Now I think after years of doing this, we've got this down to an absolute T, right? And if I break it down into 3 sections rather than the actual KPIs, we have like the financials, which is what the league position. Now you can't affect the league position without winning or losing a game, right? Which then comes to like what we call creating clients or marketing and selling, which is attack. Okay, what are the metrics to get customers, basically, right? And then on the defense side, you've got operations, which is like what are the key metrics to keep customers? And them two are going to affect your financial league position. So that's how we organize our main metrics. And then we have our North Star metrics, which I've explained already, which is your happiness and owner comp.
Yeah.
Owner comp, right?
Perfect. And then in terms of like, again, like tracking these numbers, like how often should you be looking at it? Like, can you overlook in terms of looking too much at the numbers, or can you never look too much at the financials?
And what I'd say is that the more time you spend looking at your numbers, the more your business grows. And that's a very simple behavior, right? I think I found it myself on my own coaching journey. When I started to pay attention to my numbers more, my business magically started to get better because I started to understand it more. right? So initially we might say to people, try and get into your numbers as a starting point once a week. Once a week's a starting point. Get in there once a week and understand what's going on. In the ideal scenario, I'm in there every day.
Yeah,
likewise.
I'm in there
every day. Everyone
every
else.
day.
That's why I look at spreadsheet.
Ideal scenario every day.
Look at my goal. All right, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
The thing
That's
is,
it,
okay, what it is as well, when you look at the numbers, it helps to drive behavior and drive direction, because now you're making your behavior and direction based upon what the numbers say. So as an example, if you set a goal for the month and you realize actually I'm 5 clients away from that goal, it's now like, cool, let me now go and find 5 clients.
Yeah.
And that's now based on the data.
And there's some people listening to this, and I'm not saying this to shame anyone, because everyone's been at this point, but there's some people that probably look at their numbers once a month, or maybe never, or some
people look once a year when the accountant does it. Honestly, I'm like, okay,
yeah,
we've got some work to do.
There's some people that don't actually know how many like active clients that they have. Like there's some gym owners that have a business that is running, but they actually have no insight to the data whatsoever, and it's all just chance at that point, right?
It does. That's what I'm gonna say to everyone, right? It's not as complicated as you're making out in your head. You know, and we've definitely trying to make it easier, right? It's not some magic. It literally isn't, right? And Maxime was an example of that. Like, it is a learnable skill, right? It doesn't matter how good you are at maths at school or whatever. It's like, this can be learned, you know? It just takes a bit of practice, bit of behavior. You do this for a year or two, that's it. It doesn't change. Once you've got it, that's it. Like, and then it becomes like almost like a sixth sense. As James was saying, he looks at it, it becomes a sixth sense, right? You actually just look at it and you know what to do.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to get to. That's what you want to aspire to get to, right?
Yeah. You mentioned there's certain metrics that if you're winning in, you can affect the league table in terms of like, if these metrics improve, my financials will improve. So these are like the levers you can pull in your business from a KPI point of view. So what are those levers where if a percentage is improved or reduced, it positively affects?
There's percentages everywhere, right? But in saying that, in its basic sense, it's like get more clients, keep more clients, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? As long as the numbers work out and you're profitable, that's going to have an effect on profitability of the business, which is your league table, right? However, be careful not to spend so much money to like, you don't want to be spending 100 and getting 100, right? Kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So certain, I mean, talking overall. Business, not front end.
Long term.
Yeah, long term. Yeah. So it's like you've just got to make sure, like the winners, like what's the least I can spend to make the most, and that's the gap, and that's the profit, right? Basically.
Well, this segues really nicely into creating clients. So we've established what we want. Spoken about the belief systems, money. Put the foundations in place of how much we want to make, and like mapped out that blueprint. Now it's time to get some clients. Now, before we talk about, and it's the same with building the business overall, before we talk about what to do to get clients, because there's lots of things to do to get a client, but we need to look at those foundations, right? And you just touched on it there. And I think the main metrics, and tell me your thoughts, for me is like how much you're paying to get a customer or buy a customer, and how much you get from each customer on average over a period of time. Those are the two real core metrics that you need to be keeping your eye on.
I'm going to give you an example of like a conversation I had with a coaching client the other day, right? So because people don't know, innit? They don't understand like what it actually costs to get a client, and what will they be comfortable with, right? So I looked at someone's metrics the other day, and his cost per client was about £200, right? Now, some people might think that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
But then the way we're looking at it is, okay, like what is the front end price point? And it was 200, right? So I personally think if you're breaking even on that front end, it's a good deal, but only if you've got the rest of the numbers to play with, right? So if I look at the whole holistic part of it, it's like, okay, like what is your average client lifetime value? For this client was 20 months.
Yeah.
And then what's your MRR post the front end? And again, it was 200. I'm like, and then what is your OCMP? And it was 35%, right? So if I break that down, he's making £70 MRR, right? For 20 months, which if my math is right, is about 1,400 per client, right? So if I gave you £200 and would you give me £1,400 back over a period of time? The answer is yes, right? That's not revenue, that's actual profit.
Yeah.
Because we've measured it on his OCNP, right?
So as you just said, really important distinction. That's profit
after all expenses.
After
OCMP.
Expenses. So it's 1,400 take like profit, not revenue, because revenue would be higher, but obviously
your revenue. Everyone talks in revenue, right? No one talks in profit. I'm like, look. If you're making 35%, that works at £70 per month per client for 20 months. Would you pay me £200 for that? Right? Do you know what I mean? And the answer is 100% yes. Yeah. Now, can you do this 100 times, 200 times, and then you're making like 14 grand a month? that's a great business, right? That's how you got to look at it from so it doesn't really matter if that was 200, 300. You've got to look at the whole cycle and think, is it worth it?
And I think that there's people that there's a blocker between them being able to see that of what you've just explained, because some people go like £200, but it's because they don't have the numbers laid out.
They don't understand it,
Yeah, they don't understand their profit. They don't understand how long. A lot of people don't know how long a client actually stays for on average. They'll say, oh yeah, around 18 months. But do they actually know specifically on average, based on all the clients, how long they stay for and how much they pay? Because once you actually know that and have that hard data, then spending that money to acquire a customer becomes very painless.
It becomes scientific as well.
100%. Yeah. So you're going back to some of the specific KPIs, right? So some of the things you look at when you're getting your front-end member in. So as Nikki said, you get your member in and you want to understand what is the average client sell. So what are people paying you on average for the front end? Let's go that 200 quid. Then from there, we're going to work out how much you spend to get them in. Perfect. From there, the next metric to understand is what is your conversion rate from front end to monthly recurring? Because as we know, and we've said it many times on the podcast at different points, the main aim of your fitness business is to build your monthly recurring revenue.
Yeah.
Right? Because that right there is what's going to give you predictable income. So we're trying to work out what is your conversion rate? And this now comes down to your service issue. So going back to how numbers tell you what to do, if you're getting good people in, so let's say you're getting 20 people in every single month, fantastic. And then let's say that they come into your business, but however, your conversion rate is at 40%. We've got a problem. So at that stage right there, we need to go and fix the service, the product.
Yeah.
Because more than 40% should be staying with you.
And in theory, you'd actually be better off bringing in less people at a significantly higher conversion rate, which would lead to more people sticking.
100%. 100%.
And people get stuck in this, I need to make quick front end cash. And so they look for 20, 30, 40. But sometimes making big front end sales, if you don't have the capacity, can actually hurt your business long term, right? Because every time you get someone in, it's an opportunity to wow them. And if you're getting a low percentage that are not, those people probably aren't going to come back. Well, there are some that will, but ultimately you haven't wowed them enough.
And this is why making decisions based on numbers is so important and so empowering. Because the thing is, as you said, you might think I need 30 members every single month or 30 new front-end sales without understanding actually what happens when they get into your business.
Yeah.
And without knowing that number, you'll have no idea where to focus. And you'll still be a rabbit in headlights just focusing on I need 30 new clients every single month.
Yeah, and you mentioned these levers, the league table levers, and it's like the better they all are, the easier getting clients becomes.
There's no one lever. There's no one master lever in it. It's just like a percent of every single one of them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, that's how you got to look at it, right?
But it's like the higher your front end conversion rate, the longer you hold on for someone, the higher the yield.
Yes,
and the volume. Like, if you can, and also the lower the cost per acquisition. If you can get like fine tune all of those, life becomes very, very easy.
It compounds. And
I'll say there's one more, and the one more to add into that is your retention rate.
Yeah.
All right. And that's probably going to be like the other golden KPI. We need to know once they actually, as you mentioned with lifetime value, once they get into your business, they get into your monthly recurring revenue system, how often are people leaving? And if you're keeping your retention rate 95%, 96, 97, 98, boom, it's now going to work. You can chuck people into the machine because you're going to keep them. But if your retention rate is more so 89, 85, 80, 70, then we got a problem because you're going to keep bringing people in, but your system keeps chucking them out.
Yeah. And so
I'm saying,
and like an example for those listening is that let's say on average everyone stays for 6 months. If you then increase that on average everyone stays for 12 months, you can now get half the amount of new customers and have the same outcome. So your job becomes half as easy for the same.
I was going to say that's such more of a fun business, right?
Yeah.
I'm like we see like the people that need 20, 30, 40, 50 clients every month. That's stress. That is a stressful business, right?
Yeah.
They haven't got the business set up like to make money. That's business set up just to survive. I'm telling you, right? But like the ones that we see most successful, like regular 6, 8, 12 every month, 6, 8, 12 every month. That's a good business, man. Then it's just nice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just nice.
And I think and I think that every business has a sprint period where they look to bring people in, but you want to get to a point, and it's a bit like Maxine, where she in her business had heavy sales months and would be very sales focused, but now not really at all, right? There's not a huge amount of pressure to bring new people in.
Now her business is much more fun, right? Don't get me wrong. When you need, and that's what I said, like those that need 30, 40, 50 sales, they need it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's not stress, right? And the problem becomes is why the hell do you need that every month?
Yeah.
I get it, like once in a while that every business needs to do that, right? But like, if you're needing it every month, then there's problems there.
That's it. Yeah.
And that's stress. That's not fun, right? So it's like, so you want to get to the point where you don't need that many customers every single month, right? You've got enough retention, you've got enough profit, you've got enough capital saved up, the people are staying, and you've got your front end converting, and that's the crux of a personal training business, right?
And life becomes so much easier.
So much easier.
A couple of people what I'm starting to see happen is people they get into a good position, they then sell an intake of front end sales, and it could be between 10 to 20, but that's all they need to hit their goals in terms of what they want. So they stop marketing and they take them on, and then they announce to everyone, hey, we've taken on all of our members. We're now going to start our intake next month. We'll let you know. That's the best position to be in, where like you've got the business to the point where you get the members you need. You kind of not cut off marketing, but you create urgency and scarcity. Demand and supply
economics, right?
Yeah, and then every month you just open the gate and you let people in. So like a client that did that recently, he's one of your guys, Jack Woolley. Yeah. So he had a great January, and then he just turned off the marketing, and then he put posts on social media, his email list, like, hey, like we've closed our intake, we'll open it up in Feb, I'll let you know when.
Jack's a great example here, because people will see him now and think, wow, look at where he was. But remember, like when he first come with us in FMA, he was a personal trainer in his house. Like, do you know what I mean?
Garage.
Burnt out.
Think he was making X, but really he was making Y. Do you know what I mean? He didn't know his numbers. Do you know what I mean? But it's been a 5-year journey.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, like I'd say, is like you don't try to speed this up. Like there's no point. Do you know what I mean? Because there isn't really no end point. You just find a different challenge, a different goal to hit, right? Do you know what I mean? But you can't skip steps. At every level, you have to learn your lessons, which then serve you so well when you actually get to bigger numbers, right? If you miss those lessons, it's like snakes and ladders, mate. You just end up going on the snake back down.
This episode is brought to you by the Fitness Business Development Academy. Are you running your fitness business, or is your fitness business running you? Are you frustrated that with all the effort you're making within your business every single day, at the end of the month, you're still not making as much profit than you'd like to? If so, the FBDA are the guys for you. These are some of the best business coaches within the fitness industry and have personally helped many of our clients here at Fitness Marketing Agency. If you want to find out how you can go from frustrated and stuck to clear and have clarity and more profit in your fitness business, these are the guys for you. If you want to find out more and book a free strategy call, all you need to do is go to www.thefbda.com. And going back to cost per acquisition, so James, I want to ask you specifically, like, just because you know your numbers, how much could you spend to get a customer that will still make it worth your while in terms of profitability? Do you know, like, roughly what that number would be?
It would be around 200 quid.
Yeah, but you don't pay 200 quid for a customer, but you know that your threshold is £200 to get a customer, and it's going to reward me in a large amount of profit on the back end because I've got all of these data points.
Or if I'm being precise, 227.
Yeah.
He knows his numbers, right? He knows his numbers.
That's it. So you know that. Well, so so Jack in January, he was getting customers at £39 of marketing spend, right? So that's just like a money making machine right there. But like even if he was spending, the equivalent to what your 227 is, he's still going to be profitable and he's still going to make a lot of money. But it's just the results are just hyper good. But he could afford to spend more and still be very successful. But it's just understanding the economics and understanding your data to be able to see the win. Because if you don't have that data and you're just spending £200 and you don't understand how much you're making, you can't see
That's right, you don't understand
what's coming in, basically.
Yeah. And if I was to just give a big shout out to Jack, so we're talking about what makes a hyper successful gym owner. Jack, one of Jack's biggest strengths is his ability to do implementation. He implements the heck out of what he learns. So sometimes when you get into this space, you can get into this space thinking that you need more and more information, and you become an information hoarder. So it's like, I want info from here, info from there, info from you, listen to all the podcasts, listen to Alex Hormozy, everybody else, and it's info.
Yeah.
But if you get all this info and then you've got a massive, let's say, mental library of all these books, but you're not doing the work, it's not going to happen. Right?
Yeah.
One of Jack's biggest strengths is that he takes the info, takes action.
Yeah, well,
He takes action.
I host a marketing strategy call every Monday, and it was Jack watched the recording and implemented that urgency strategy that I said, and he messaged me. He was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I did that and I got replies and it worked really well." I didn't even tell him to do it. He just saw someone and then went and did it.
So
that goes back to
exactly
right? Yeah,
implementation, man.
Yeah.
It's one of his biggest strengths, man. And if I was to say, if anyone listening, you got to just take action.
Yeah, that's nice. And in terms of like, so we've spoken about, let's say, the foundations of getting customers, like the economics of it. Now let's talk about like your approach for getting clients. I know you have the taps.
Yeah, so like there's like 5 real ways to get clients. I was sort of like paid ads is probably like I use a tap. I'm going to change that to a hose pipe because like but the problem with sometimes with that, and for reasons that no one knows, sometimes the hose pipe gets in a tangle and you can put more money in and nothing comes out, right? It happens, right? I don't think anyone knows but Meta, if I'm honest with you, right? Do you know what I mean? It's like but we see this with our clients a lot, FMA clients. But we see like, okay, like when things are working, great. When things not working, can you get the other 4 taps to drip, which are referrals, reactivation, strategic partners, and your organic content. And I'll go back to Jack especially. Like the reason why he does so well is because you got everything done. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what we see with the most successful people. Like 1 or 2 will work, 1 or 2 won't, 1 or 2 will work, 1 or 2, but it keeps the flow going. It keeps the tap going, right? Do you know what I mean? And that's how you got to look at it, yeah.
And for long-term success, it's an issue if you just rely on one of those taps or the hose, because let's say your business is built off referrals, and really you can have referral systems, but you don't have a huge amount of control and leverage. So if 1 month that doesn't work and you've got nothing else running, then it's not worked. Where the same with ads, like if for whatever reason, so let's give an example of Black Friday in November when everyone's advertising, not just gyms, everyone, and ad costs increase, meaning that your lead flow decreases, and you've just focused on that and nothing else, you're going to be in a similar situation. So it's about, I say the ecosystem, but I like the taps. I think the taps are simpler.
I like the ecosystem, to be honest. I like the ecosystem. I think because sometimes you get a lead that's seen an ad and seen a thing.
Yes,
do you know what I mean?
that's actually a very good point. Because, and also when you have the taps running and just use both of them, like there's cross-pollination between your marketing, right?
There's a lot. There's a lot of that, right? Yeah.
And I think something you said years ago, I think you spoke about, maybe it's Medusa. Or maybe it's you or Ben, like, and Medusa's like this thing from Greek mythology where she's got like loads of heads of snakes, right? Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? And all these heads of snakes are representing your different actual lead sources. So you've got to have multiple lead sources. You've got to have so many things going on. So that way, as you said, if one closes, then the other one goes. Yeah. If that one closes, that one goes. And ultimately, they actually all work together. Yeah,
that's it. And then like, and going slightly back to the cost per acquisition thing is that like, I remember speaking to someone and they were like, this is my cost per acquisition. And I was like, but how many total sales you made? Yeah, but like I got 2 referrals, I got 3 from the website. I was like, yeah, but the person that referred you, where did they come from? And it was actually a Facebook ad. It's like, all right, so if the Facebook ad didn't come from before, you wouldn't have had the referral, but now you're just attributing one thing to one thing.
You can't isolate it. Yeah. You can't isolate it. It all works together, and you have to have all of them. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, right? But like, nothing will grow your business faster than ads when they work. Yeah, but there's no doubt about that.
But simultaneously, someone might opt into an ad because a friend told them about the gym. Yeah. Yes. So actually, the person coming through the funnel came actually from a referral, but you just don't see it. Yeah. But obviously, we're just looking at the data we have available to us and making those decisions when
it's
you
holistic,
have to be able
right?
to see.
This is what you're looking at.
Yeah,
it's like again, anything to do with training, like everything's holistic. Like nutrition works with training and works with strength and cardio and rest. It all works together, right? Nothing works in isolation, and it's the same with creating clients in terms of like what marketing should you be doing. The one thing I would say with that is like what James was saying. Don't worry about not knowing it, just do it. You learn. You learn so much when you actually take actions. That's one of our things that we always say is just get paid to play. If you've never written an email, write one. And then you learn, right? You don't have to learn first, right? Write it, get out there, get the feedback, and the best feedback you get is from the market.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it, yeah.
Well, it's like some people that I don't like being on camera, or I'm not good on camera, or I don't know how to do this or that. And really what I just say is like, look, like the first time you do anything, you're going to suck. Like you're going to be really bad at this thing because it's the first, like, it's like the first time you make a cake, right? It's going to be the worst cake you ever make unless
me, right? Like I go and present on stage now, even this podcast, I would have never done that, right? Like I was like the most scariest cat ever, right? It's like, but reps, practice, and knowing like what my goal is and what I need to do to get there, you start to get better and better and better, right? But like even like getting in front of the camera, I hated it. Yeah, absolutely hated it. But you never know now, right? You never know now because I've had the reps.
Yeah. And again, it's that process about, but also it's like, if you say to yourself, my goal is to be consistent with doing it, rather than my goal is to be good. By being consistent, you'll become good. Because you'll just get better as it goes on. Because ultimately, if your goal is I need to be good and you send it out, it's a very high chance it's not going to be good. So you're just going to let yourself down at the first hurdle.
This is the thing. It doesn't, even when we're marketing, right? It doesn't even need to be the best. You just need to get done, and then you're already in the top 5%.
Version 1's better than version none, as we always say, right? Just get it out there. Just get out there. And just even touched on that whole consistency thing, going back to what makes successful gym owners. Consistency.
Yeah.
That's it, right? It's one of the things that makes you successful in anything in life. If you're doing it day in, day out, if you have the discipline to do the boring stuff regularly and frequently, then it's only ever going to go one way. But you've got to have the discipline to do the boring stuff and do it over and over again.
And speaking of that, let's kind of move into sales in terms of like you get leads. Some people may book in for a call, but oftentimes you have to call them. And this is a task that is essential, but also there's lots of resistance towards it. And I'm sure you have some clients that are just absolute sales machines and they have no hesitation. Maybe they did it in the past. And some people where it just terrifies them, they don't like doing it, but it's necessary. So first of all, do you experience that at all with
all the time?
Yeah.
All the time. You know what I mean?
Sometimes I hate sales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so important to do it. But it's also important to recognize that like it is one of those like calling leads that you'll call someone they don't pick up, you'll call someone they'll hang up. Like it's not a pleasurable activity to do unless you're doing a really good job at it, right?
Reframing it is important, I think. You know what I mean? It's like one of the things that I've worked from as a coaching is try to reframe it to making it a game playing and I talked to him, it's just like dating, you know, got a bit of fun, a bit of chasey and then eventually you might get it, but you got to play that game, don't take it too seriously. But also sometimes I frame it as like, look, just think of it like coaching prospects to become clients rather than selling. Do you know what I mean? And again, it depends who you're talking to. Some people are fine with the word sales. Others, like, they need to think that they're coaching. So again, it goes back to all that behavior thing about like, can you reframe it for the person that you're working with to make it work for that specific person? But as what you were saying, it's essential. Like you cannot grow a business without getting clients and selling, right? It's like if someone passes me the ball, I'm the striker, I've got to score. That's sales, right? Do you know what I mean? You can't win the game without that. So you have to find a way that's going to work for you. Again, going back right to the start, like making it work for you. And there's different ways to do that, right?
And I think it also comes back to that, like why, like what is it you want and why do you want it? And that needs to be strong enough. And just an example that is not in the fitness industry specifically, but so Luke on the sales team, he came from a background where he used to make like $200-$300 a day, like was that, and it got to a point where he didn't enjoy that anymore. Came to FMA and he was doing inbound calls, so speaking with prospective gym owners and just kind of educating them on how we work. We've now expanded and we're now working with online coaches, and he's working heavily on that. And he will speak to prospective clients, but also he's now calling leads. Now he doesn't naturally like calling leads because it's boring, but he knows what his goal is because he wants to buy a new home for his family. So that want and why is compelling him to pick up the phone and make dials.
That's the why. That's the why, right? Yeah, that's the why. Yeah.
Before that goal was there, it was a real struggle for him to do those reps because he'd done it so many times, and it's just like
this is why you got to identify the why first, right? You got to have the purpose. What Maxine was saying about the team, you got to know what people want.
Yeah.
And then motivation's easy, right?
Yeah.
I call it. What's the intrinsic motivation? Like extrinsic's a bit harder, right? Someone's internally motivated. So why we get up at 5 a.m. and finish at 9. Don't even think twice about it, right? But most people wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's
that's
like,
it.
and that's what it's like.
Yeah. Having the why strong enough that you don't even think about the thing you're going to do. You just go and do it.
You just do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Right. So we've touched on getting clients. We've touched on sales. Let's look at. I know we've mentioned this a little bit, but like leadership and business management. And then there's actually one more at the end that I do want to talk about. So. Well, we've kind of. What about the leadership framework? So we've dived into how obviously we're dealing with people. We need to understand their wants, but let's talk about this leadership framework.
So I'll just reiterate what I said earlier on. Right, we have a pyramid, which is manage yourself before you manage your business, and then it's leading people, then it's leading performance, and then leading change, and then developing leaders. Right. So if you think of that, but like it moves from IQ to EI, which is logical intelligence to more emotional intelligence as you go up. Right. So it's not more information that's going to make you a better leader. It's understanding how people work makes you a better leader. Right. So I think that's important, and you will evolve. I think leadership is one of those things that never finishes. If I look at even my own team, like how I led my team of personal trainers is very different to how I lead my business coaches now because they're already successful entrepreneurs, right? So I relate it to like Alex Ferguson managing Ronaldo, right? It's already an established player. That's different to managing someone who's just coming into the industry, right? And you have to develop different leadership skills based on who you're actually working with. But it's fun. I thoroughly enjoy not knowing what I'm doing and having to figure it out.
So you have to mold it around the person
you have to mold
you're in
it.
front of.
Yeah. You have to mold it, right? Because it's different. I wouldn't be able to like work with James like I work with someone who's just coming out of PT school. Right, they would need to be taught actually like step 1, step 2. James like, what are you doing, man? Like, I don't need this stuff, right? It's like, so it's like you got to be different, right? Do you know what I mean? But I know what his goals are. You know what I mean? I know what he wants. Do you know what I mean? It's like I know what Maxime wants, and I'm like, how can I make this work for everyone? What we said, the triple win scenario, right? How do I make it win for the client, for the staff, and the business? Go on.
And here's the thing, right? And Nikki's spot on. It's just like when you're coaching clients. When you coach clients, some clients, and if you know about different learning styles, some clients learn from what you show them visually. So they're amazing that if you do a demonstration and they see it, they're like, okay, cool, that works for me. For other people, they've got to learn by doing it. They're kinesthetic learners. So they've actually got to learn by actually doing the exercise, then they'll understand what to do. Others learn by what they hear, right? And the skill of a good coach, a good fitness coach, is being able to identify what is everyone's different method of learning, right? Exactly the same as a leader. You've got to identify what is everyone's different method of communication that will work for them at their stage of their journey. So for one person who's been with you for a long time, you might have to give them a bit more room to actually make decisions for themselves. So you've got to empower them to make decisions because actually they've been with you for a while. They don't need to be told what to do. They need to be empowered to actually think. Whereas somebody else who might be new to the industry, new to your team, they actually might need you to tell them directly, you make sure you do X, Y, and Z. And if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll be successful within this business.
How do you find out which approach is right for which person? Is it just based off intuition, or is there a process like you need to go through with them? Because obviously you know if someone's more experienced, you don't need to have hands-on with them versus someone. But I don't know, like in terms of like personality types, or like is it just you've just got?
I personally think it happens through conversation and interaction, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think one of these, this is not something you just go and learn about. There are personality tests and all that. I'm like, no, it's the conversations you're having day in, day out with people. You kind of feel your flow with that other human.
And to actually communicate with them properly.
Right? Yeah, you need to communicate because like James said, if you get the communication wrong and tell someone who's a higher level worker, do this, they're going to be like, what the hell? Right? Yeah, what's this, right? It's like, so, but on the flip side, if you're saying you think for yourself when they don't know,
They ain't got the skill.
then, so this is what you have to understand. And as your organization grow, you're going to have both. You're going to have some here, and you've got to adapt a little bit to do that, right?
And what I'd say, the key really there is just trial and error. You've got to try it.
Yeah.
That goes back to it. You've got to try, you've got to implement it, and you learn by making mistakes and by getting it right.
Yeah.
Because what works for one won't work for the other and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's such an important message because there was someone that I was speaking to that had their first staff member and then they left and then they were basically just like deterred from ever getting a staff member again. And I was saying to him, I was like, mate, like this happens to everyone. And like you need to, and he was quite down about the whole situation and kind of just looking at the negative. I was like, but mate, there's value in this experience for you because you know when the next staff member comes along, there's things you should be able to take away. You just need to look at it like that because otherwise, if you're going to look at every single bad thing at just this is why I'm not good, then ultimately it's going to be really hard rather than where's the opportunity, where's the learning curve from here?
I'm working with a client right now and it's funny you say that and the assistant manager left and I'm on the Zoom call going, yes. I'm like, and they're like, why is this guy so happy? I goes, you know what? Now you're taking control of your business, like, and you're not giving them an easy ride. You're going to see a few people leave, right? But this is exactly what your business needed. Do you know what I mean? And then the new people that come in, like, they'll be better because now you've got more control of your business, right? But they must have been looking at me like, what is this guy? I don't know. I haven't seen it. Yeah.
I reckon the best leadership lessons come from your mistakes, man. If I'm honest with you, all the things that I've learned that have made me a better leader have come from doing things wrong. Yeah, and that's ultimately you have to go through that pain to get to the pleasure.
And it's like obviously you have different approaches to people, but I imagine you've also got to find your own style.
That's it.
Of how you act as a leader.
You have to find your own style.
So as an example, like generally, and I had to find my own style as a leader, but even as a business coach, generally I'm a bit more chilled, a bit more laid back, probably a bit soft.
Yeah.
But I had to learn, sometimes you got to be hard. Yeah. Sometimes you might have to be an arsehole a little bit. Sometimes you got to lay the law down. Yeah. And you've got to find different ways of, delivering your leadership style that's going to be effective because, Otherwise, you might not get it right.
How do you deal with having difficult conversations? Because a lot of people don't want to have a hard conversation because it's very uncomfortable. Yeah. And it's funny because like if you're the person on the receiving end of the difficult conversation, maybe they don't understand that the other person actually doesn't want to be there just as much, right? It's like this thing that's necessary, but it's like, do you know what I'm talking about?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think obviously we all know about the crap sandwich, right? Delivering a little bit of good, really bad stuff, a little bit of good, put it together, and there you go. So how you deliver it's really important. But ultimately, when it comes to, we had a similar sort of thing with a client recently, right? And they hired a staff member, and that staff member looked really good. And then the staff member ultimately was getting complaints from people within the business about how they were interacting, right? And ultimately it turned out that they weren't quite a team player and they were not being great with actual members within the business. And this person had, quit their job and come to this business. But ultimately he had to make the hard decision of saying, actually, this is not working. I think we're going to have to terminate your employment here. And why did he do it? He had to do it to ultimately protect the business because the business at that point had to win. So at this point, the triple win scenario is now in danger.
Yeah, the clients aren't winning. The business isn't winning.
And also the other staff members aren't winning either.
Yeah.
So there's now danger, right? So ultimately you got to think, who's going to win right now? Am I going to let this person win whilst being having a detrimental effect on the business, or am I going to make the business win and make the hard decision? And when it comes to hard conversations, ask yourself, who's going to win here? Do you know what I'm saying? What is at stake? And then when you think of that, then it makes having the harder conversations a little bit easier.
When I had my PT studio, I struggled with this a lot, right? Do you know what I mean? So what I did was I put myself in environments where it was tough situations. Do you know what I mean? And I was just wanted to get reps, literally, right? So every tough conversation that I would have not done, I did. And guess what? It got easier.
You just, it got
easier. It got easier.
It goes back to what we were talking about, the marketing, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, like, I'm not good at writing an email. We'll just write it. Like, I don't like having a conversation. We'll just do it. And although that isn't, like it might sound like difficult advice, the more you do it, the easier it's going to be.
It's so funny. Like when I first started email marketing, my spelling's atrocious. Everyone knows that, right?
Yeah.
Even with Grammarly and whatever, like I'm still so bad at it, right? But I remember when I was doing my emails before any of that stuff, right? I was still getting clients. And I had other people saying, your spelling's so bad, I'm never going to come and work with you. I couldn't even see it. My eyes just do not see the spelling, right? But I stopped for a little while out of like, man, like, this is not good. But then sales stopped, right? So I was like, nah, forget that. I'm all right with spelling. I need to get clients. But I just did it, right? Do you know what I mean? So going back to the hard conversations, I feel like business is a game of skills, right? So like put yourself into positions where tough conversations, even with family members or whatever, and it's just about getting that reps and that. This is how you build emotional intelligence, to be honest with you, right? But then you can come to your business and it becomes so much easier to have those conversations straight away, and that's they're coming. Don't get me wrong; those hard conversations are absolutely essential at every level, right? So you do, as a leader, need to be okay with it.
Cool. So the last thing I want to talk about, which is a topic I don't think we've really ever spoken about on the podcast before, which I think is going to be really interesting for a higher level of gym owner. So you build your gym, you pretty much cap it to capacity. You've done a price increase. You're at a high level of revenue. You're at a good level of profit. And also it'd be good to to get your thoughts on what you think a good level of profit is percentage wise, but you're at a good level of profit and you're making money. What at this point, what are the options of what you can do with the money you're making to help you make more money? Now, a lot of people might go, well, I might invest in kit, or they might go, I want a second facility, which these kind of like the probably the most common thoughts of a gym owner. But there's actually other ways to keep your business successful, keep it running, and also take that money and actually you utilize that money to make even more money for yourself, and you can work on other things as well. So I'd love to speak about this, and this is kind of almost like the end game of not the end game because it's not coming to an end, but it's when you're at a certain point, what can you look to do with those finances once you're in a better position?
And this is where the real game of business starts, if I'm honest with you, right, Joe? It's like, because now you're playing at a proper entrepreneurial level when you've actually solved like level 1 or level 2, whatever you want to call it. But if I look at it as a pyramid, we have a pyramid on this, and like the number one thing that we recommend you invest into is your own education. Like nothing will beat like studying on how to work business better, right? Or investment or so. So it's constantly got to be spent. But most people who get to that point have already invested in themselves, right? Very few get to that point without that, right? Second would be like, okay, like the quickest way to make more money is to invest back into your own business. You know it better than anything else. So unless you are fully maxed out, like I would probably recommend like try to spend more on marketing, more on staff, to leverage more profits out of the current business you have, right? Then it moves into like low risk and high risk investments.
So we've maxed out the gym like 100%, and now we're looking to maybe take that money and place it into other places. Probably good to caveat, like this isn't official financial advice, but this is just what maybe you've done or what you've done in the past. As well.
Yeah. So then it opens up, right? You can invest in other businesses, invest in property. I look at Monopoly, a game I used to play as a kid. Like, how do you take cash in, build greenhouses, and then greenhouses into hotels? That literally is what you're doing, right? And it's either property, shares, crypto, other businesses, your own business, whatever. There's tons of investments that you could possibly do, and that's up to the individual of what they do. But but now you're trying to get to a point where you're mitigating risk, I guess, because you're at a different level. So it's good to invest in other businesses or real estate or shares. So all your risk is not in one basket, and that's the next level of entrepreneurship, basically.
You mentioned, James, like your business is an asset that creates impact but also creates revenue, and so it's like once you've got one asset, can you maybe make another asset? So that could be another gym, but also I know but both of you have like invested into other areas to be able to make the money work for you, essentially.
For sure. And the thing is, right, so with all of this, at this level and at every level, money needs direction, right? Money needs direction. So you need to understand, what is this money that I'm producing? Where is it going and what is it for, right? And initially, at the start, it's all about getting you out of pain. That's the first part. Save yourself, get yourself out of pain, look after yourself, look after your family, right? And that's like even the bottom of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You need to make sure that you've got warmth, you've got shelter, and all of your physiological needs and everything is met. From there, now when you're at this stage now, the top of the pyramid now in terms of even the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you might be looking at self-fulfillment or self-actualization. And what you're doing here now is you're trying to look at other things that you might want to invest in that can also help you to build wealth, right? And as Nikki mentioned, there are lots of different ways you can do that. And what you want to try and do is diversify your investment ideas or investment streams, whether that can be into the property stuff, whether it's going to be in your stocks and your shares. And I think at this stage, it's actually about opening up your mind, right? Because ultimately, at this stage, it's very easy to invest back in the business, which you should do, and invest back in yourself, which you should do, right? But if you've still got a little bit left over, start asking yourself, what are the bigger things? What are the things, where would I like to be in 5, 10, 15 years' time? So I was having a conversation with a client yesterday, and he came on the call, and I think it's half term, so I spent a lot of time with his kids, and he was a little bit frazzled, right? And I started to ask him, and he's like, look, I'm making the right money. Like, we've kind of hit that goal. I'm out of the pain. What's next? So I said to him, like, what do you want for your kids in 10 years? And he's like, that's a good question. And I was like, okay, why don't we set a goal for where you want to, where you have a saving fund for your children, so that in 10 years' time, when they're a little bit older, they can use that however they need to for their lives. And I could see that it gave him a little bit of like, bloody hell, man, that's really good. And I said, for you and your partner, why don't we set a goal that you guys have a saving pot for yourselves, and that will be in some stocks and shares. And I was like, how much you got in there? He's like, not a lot. I said, cool, let's set a goal. Let's set a goal for the end of this year where you want that to be. And I could see by setting those goals and by helping him to think a bit bigger and helping him to really see his business as an asset which creates value and which can potentially create wealth for the medium to long term, it infused him. And now that, and then the thing is, when you break it back down, what's the actionable step? Go and make more sales.
Yeah. So I was just going to say,
right?
like, how efficient does the business become when you're thinking bigger? Do you know what I mean? Because you ain't got a choice, right? When you get into the single investment games, like the numbers are much bigger. So now you think, how can I make the cash flow better? So then you have to improve everything, right? So it almost helps, like, having these bigger goals when you're ready, because not everyone, sometimes it can be overwhelming, but when you're ready, and you just end up a better business owner, right? Because the game you're playing is now bigger.
It ties back to something you said earlier, where you mentioned that like that never ends, the goals just change. And in terms of, investing in where to put that, it's not like, oh, you should put your money in here, because you basically went to the individual, well, what do you want for your children in 10 times? What's the longer term goal now that you've achieved this? Because I've seen this a lot where a gym owner will get to a goal within their gym and they just get bored and they don't really know what to do. And actually what I've seen in a number of cases is their gym kind of goes backwards a little bit, because when it goes backwards, it can go back up to where it was.
This is a common problem, by the way. And this is where we're all adrenaline junkies, really. You know what I mean? And that's the truth, right? It's like
we love the chase,
you
right?
love the buzz, right? So you don't realize it until you ain't got it, and then it's like, okay, I need a challenge, right? And that's entrepreneurship. That's the sport we choose to play, right? So if you don't find it from somewhere, you will like literally self-sabotage your own business to get it back again without you actually consciously knowing that that's what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? So it's literally like a drug addict, right? But that is it. That we're hooked to the adrenaline rush, right? So it is important to like challenge yourself, and this is where the game never ends, right? You have to challenge yourself to things that you don't know. Otherwise, this is what happens. You self-sabotage, right?
Yeah.
See it all the time.
Isn't that funny? Things can be good, but then because they're good, you want to break it.
This is where we're emotional creatures. Again, you don't realize we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
It's not intellectual. Yeah. It's all emotional, right? It's like we need that in this case the adrenaline rush, right? So
and I know that you have like levels in your you got people that are like 0 to 8K, and then I think it's 8 to 30, and then you've got the seven figure club.
So there's three levels, right? Normally we call it core foundations. Typically it's 0 to 8K when they go. However, we do get businesses that are doing 40, 50K that need to go into that product. Because they're so broken. We have to look. You're spending, and that happens a lot, right? So everyone normally starts and we have to fix a lot of things. And then we go to 8 to 30K, which is the ultimate lifestyle business. We call it the fitness business growth phase.
You know what's really interesting about that first thing you just said? I was speaking with someone on the phone, and he was talking about he was part of this little group that was based off revenue, and he was like, I wish they didn't base it off a revenue number. And he was like, because I spoke with some people that had big revenue but knew nothing.
Yeah,
and it was and he's basically saying like it's not valid, like that they have all these like very simple things that they need to fix, even though so like the determining factor to be in like a higher level group was revenue, but actually there's so much behind the scenes that was absolute chaos.
There is, and this is why on our 7-figure group, which we only created because like people were getting to the end of their journey and there was nowhere else to go, right? And we're like, we need to create that next challenge. It's worked out amazingly well. We're 3 years into that program, and that's
and you don't have to be at 7 figures, but you have to be at the end of the journey.
The goal is to get 7 figures, right? You got to be at 30,000 revenue, but 33% OCMP. So you're already set, profit-wise.
And that's the profit goal as well. It's 33%.
You have to be there. Otherwise, like you can't really play that game at the game because you're still worrying about making a profit, right? So
worry about paying bills. And
So then that game, then you can't play that game, right? It's like you need to go back and fix the business before you can actually play the game, right? But at the business growth level at 30,000, normally that allows 10,000 OCMP, which is enough for a lot of people. It's a good lifestyle business. But then it's the challenge, isn't it? The whole thing of that 7-figure thing is not so much you need the money, it's like what's the next entrepreneurial challenge for me? How far can I actually take it? And we have like 13, 14 businesses in that group sharing ideas, and it's interesting to see what happens in that room versus the conversations that happen in different rooms. They're very different, man. Very, very different. But yeah, the goal is then to get to that 7 figures.
And is the conversation, is it just about the gym, or is it also about other ways for them to get, like they're a business owner, they've got a gym, everyone in the room's got a gym?
It's more than that. Yeah.
It's a lot broader. The thing is, when you've got to that stage and you've earned the right to think bigger, right?
Yeah.
So, and I guess one of the things I'd say, even going to when you're below that stage, generally, one product can get you to 30K. Mm-hmm. Right? If you focus on one thing and do that one thing really, really well, that's all you need.
Yeah.
If I'm honest with you. And that's not saying that you can't do other products, but it's just saying that if you focus on one thing really well, you'll go and hit the 30K.
Also,
right?
so if you're making 30K and your profit is 33%, then obviously that's 10,000 a month profit in the business. And there's a lot of businesses that are doing much higher revenue, but their profit's nowhere near
all the time. All the time. And this is why everyone goes into the core foundations program first.
Yeah,
we have to break everything down and literally they've built a building on a wonky structure.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? It's like you can't build any further, otherwise the building will fall down.
Do you think sometimes like you can actually you can grow yourself into less profitability
all the time. Yeah. 100%.
So you build a bigger beast, and it's actually worse than it was when it was smaller.
Yeah, we see this a lot.
When they keep spending, and not tracking, and all you're doing is eating profit.
And it's unhappy. Like people get like where that's what I said. Sometimes it happens. Like you'll climb up the wrong ladder. You need to
go back,
come back down, and then go again, right? And it might be very different to how you envisioned, but that's the power of like working with a coach, right? So we can actually identify that.
I think that a lot of gym owners, if they knew that they could take 10k a month profit, would and it was like, look, you have to make your business smaller, but you'll make 10k profit.
But they take it.
I think they definitely would.
100% they take it.
The majority would be
they take it.
Yeah.
It's a great life, right? It's what they want. Then they can truly help people.
Yeah.
Now, once their own oxygen is in terms of money, then now they can really authentically do what they actually love, which is to help people get in shape and get healthy. And that's a great place to be. And that's what us at FBDA want to try and do, right? It's like be in a place where you're authentically like helping people because you're taken care of financially. Like that's the goal, right?
And I like the idea of this that 7-figure club, because it's like there's lots of groups where it's just like, let's work on your gym and make it the best it possibly can. Whereas you guys are like, look, your gyms are in a good spot, and yes, we're going to work on that, but as you said, you've now got permission to think bigger. Like the actual, like the next step might not be within the gym space, because like, you know, so like people go, I want gym 2, gym 3, gym 4, and that's a perfectly reasonable goal for some, but for others,
it's not even a much. Sometimes like just putting a physio room in. You know what I mean? Or putting a can double your profits with just a little room, right? So it's just about like being smart about what's the next logical.
What do you think about the like multi-site facility owners? So obviously there's some that are doing a very good job and successful, but again, do you think some people do it because they like, I want to be a multi-site, like they do it for we spoke about this at the start, they do it for that ego reason of like, I want the second site, and it makes them feel kind of good, versus will this actually improve the quality of my life and the business and the money I take?
100%. So firstly, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. So that's the first thing. People talk about revenue all the time because that's where the ego gets fed, but profit's what really matters, okay? And it can be exactly the same when we all have that dream of being a multi-site owner, right? So I remember when I first got in the industry, back then, the big dream was go and get a studio. So it was, you start at LA Fitness doing your rent model, you pay rent, you build up a client base, then you go and find your own studio. Because back then, getting a studio was really difficult. Do you know what I'm saying? And that was a typical thing. And now we've moved on 10, 15 years later, and the idea is get one studio, then go and get 5. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what everyone says, because we all go into that whole homogenous thing of let's all look, sound, and be the same. Do you know what I'm saying? But actually, for a lot of people, it might not work, because if business one is not making profit and business one is not doing what it should be doing with regards to having the right systems, having the right staff in place, having the right ability to serve the business owner, and then you go and take those same problems and those same bad habits into Studio 2, you're only just building upon bad foundations.
That's what we see a lot
and
of.
And then people do get Studio 3 and Studio 4. And what they think, well, if I get the next studio, that will help me get into profit. But all they're doing is making any profit they've got even worse.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like if I get another studio, I can go into profit. No, it's like, well, you might as well have zero money. You might as well be making zero money.
So this is it. I would say look, you can't grow your way into profitability. You have to be profitable from unit 1. And I think that's key. And this is, again, go back to what you're saying, why like we have like people on 40, 50,000 go into the core foundations program is the financials are not set. Like you're not growing this is not gonna make money, right? You have to tear it up, start again, and then go again.
You can't build a good business on bad economics. Do you know what I'm saying? And we see it all the time. So I'd say for anybody whose big goal and desire is to go and have multi-sites, and going back to your question, are there people out there who have multi-sites and do well? 1,000,000%. Yeah. So we see lots of gym owners that do it really well, and they're really clever, really actually very well skilled operators, and I admire what they're able to do. But ultimately, if your desire is to go and get multiple sites, and actually Max is one of them, she's got multiple sites, so Max is a good example. If your desire is to get multiple sites, make sure site 1 is profitable. Yeah. Make sure site 1 does everything it needs to do, ticks all the boxes, and then when site 1's working, then you've earned the right.
That's what she did, right? I was just going back to it, like
site 2 complemented site 1 really well in terms of being able to increase like capacity of sessions and profit, and she knew that before going in.
But we spent 18 months working on site 1, fixing that
before.
This is the thing, right? Because when we were working on financial, she was all over the shop, right? So she had to correct that. It's only when she made profit then did number 2. And then it's much easier now to go to number 3, number 4. She gets it. She
And then
understands
imagine
it, right?
if she had gone to site 2 when site 1 was still in problems.
And that's what people do. That's what people do, thinking that they're gonna.
Do you think that like what
stress?
what
Stress. Yeah.
if there were like a few key factors, like what should be in place in site 1, like there should be that level of profitability. Do you also think that you shouldn't have to be operational in that business before you look at site 2?
To a level. Do you know what I mean? I do think like you can operate some part of it. I think. Listen, being free totally, if you are fortunate to get that point, is going to be the best. There's no doubt about that, right? But you need a good number 2. Now it goes into developing leaders in our leadership, right? Without a good number 2, forget about it, man. Yeah. You can't do this on your own anymore. Like you can't play 11-a-side football on your own and expect to win, right? It's not going to happen. You need other people that can actually do the leading for you and run a business. And this is something that we do on our 7-Figure Club. Actually, I'm bringing it right. So when we're coaching people on the 7-Figure Club, we're not only just coaching the owner. We actually coach their number 2. Do you know what I mean? So we're helping them, like, help their leaders develop and operate a business, and that's worked really well for us, right? So
amazing. Well,
yeah.
I think we've covered pretty much everything, unless there's anything else in particular you want to go through. But before we do wrap up, I just want to run through how people can find you, and if they want to kind of like find out more about FBDA, like where they can go and what they can do.
Sure, you can go to our website www.thefbda.com, or you can find us on our Instagram, which is FitBizCoach.
Yeah. I think just to add on to that is that when you do speak with these guys, like you will get immense value just from the call alone, and that's whether you decide to move on or not. And you know, like every single business that you speak to has a product and service behind it, which these guys obviously do. But I promise you, if you just speak with them, and even if you decide you don't want to do anything further, you will get immense value from the call. And so I highly advise you just to connect and speak with these guys, because like worst case scenario, you've made 2 very good 2, 3, 4 very good connections that you'll know for life. And it's going to be very powerful to have that. Best case scenario is that your business just completely transforms and changes and you make a lot more money. So I would 100% recommend speaking to these guys. I would also say, and I don't mean this in a bad way, like you guys are massively like you're not super known in this space, but I believe like you're some of the best at what you do in terms of literally teaching business finance and what to do with your money beyond that as well. Like you guys are as I refer to you guys, the financial wizards. So yeah, no, a massive respect to you guys. You've helped a huge amount of FMA clients and people outside the space as well. Anything you guys want to add on before we go ahead and wrap things up?
No, I just appreciate it, and if just to the listeners, if you want change to happen, then you have to change.
Yeah, amazing. Anything from you, James?
It's great to be here, and I'm always here to help. And we really want to help people to help as many people as they can through their businesses and achieve their dreams, man. So get in touch, and we'll make it happen.
Boom. Well, with that said, we'll go ahead and wrap up the episode. Yeah, thank you guys for listening, boys. Boom, love it.